Welcome to Sons of the Warrior, episode 9.
9.
Wow.
That's awesome.
You know, they say most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. So
That's
look at
what they
us.
say.
Here we
I
go.
have heard that.
Little known fact from our friend Granger here. Just trying to uplift his brothers here in their
Now
endeavor.
we have made it past 7.
We're on the
So
other
that
side.
means we're almost made it big time. So
Hey, you may notice something a little different. I am not Olivia. And we have this young man here, Granger Hieronymus, our guest.
and that
star.
is not Gabe.
Olivia is actually out there doing the Lord's work, helping her tornado victims up in Kentucky. So she's actually out there doing the Warrior's Path type stuff.
wow, she is.
You know, Sons of the
What a-
Warrior.
Yeah, we should all be up
Daughters
there,
of the Warrior. We should have, but she went to represent us.
no doubt.
Granger,
Yes, sir.
thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
He has a YouTube channel. What's your handle?
It's Hieronymus Outdoors.
Go check him out.
yeah, it's on the back of his Chevy Suburban or whatever it is that you drive.
It's a Tahoe, man.
Yeah, same thing.
Tahoe.
It's not.
Vehicles.
Yeah. No, that's
you're
awesome.
You're the car man here, and
Yeah.
man,
Technically,
I live it.
also have a
I
car.
bleed blue, though.
if it's Ford, it's
Yeah, it's for me.
unless it's Ford, it's
Yeah.
nothing.
But tell us a little bit about what you got going on the channel. I see a lot of his stuff out there. Very professional work. But you go ahead and tell us.
I
about
appreciate
it.
that.
Yeah.
Thank
very
you.
good.
So I do mostly fishing videos. I also paint, do custom lures, specializing in custom glide baits. If you don't know what those are, go check out the channel. If you like fishing, try them out. They're going to blow your mind. Some of my favorite videos on there are of me and my son, Finley.
Family man.
Yes.
First
Yes.
and foremost.
And so him riding along the kayak with me, he loves it. Except for when he doesn't, then he really hates it.
He's like, I'm done.
That's kids. That's
Yeah.
kids with everything. Though
No, that's awesome.
they love it until they hate it.
He laughs and then he's like, I want mom. I want mom.
why are we still here?
He's like, well, we caught a fish. Can we go see mom now? Like, no, son. The point is to catch as many fish as we can.
Do you
Yeah.
eat the fish, or are you one of those throwback people?
I throw them back so I can go
Catch 'em
catch them when
again.
I need them.
Yeah.
Do you ever eat them?
No. Unless I'm camping, then I'll eat like rainbow trout, brown trout. But bass, I don't really eat those.
Yeah. I mean, unless you really know how to, cook it right,
Yeah.
they're not technically gourmet.
They're not the best. I'd say
Yeah.
crappie, down here are probably the best fish you can eat, like freshwater wise.
Freshwater, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the saltwater is where if you want to eat fish, that's where it's at.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And Florida being surrounded by saltwater, it's pretty easy to catch actual good quality fish.
Yeah.
You can go
No doubt.
go out and catch a bunch of grunts,
Yeah.
Load
Hey.
up.
like somebody.
No, we went deep sea fishing. It was a church event.
Ouch.
The men went out and we slayed some. We went out and caught. We didn't go fishing. We went catching. We were gonna go to a spot where it would have been pretty much grunts, but we did catch some red snapper. We got a big old red grouper. And this was all like on a half-day trip, so you can't get really far out on a half-day usually, so you really don't get into some of the bigger game fish, but we actually did do pretty well.
Did good.
I was very, very surprised. I was expecting to only catch grunts, but not that there's anything wrong with grunts.
Oh, they taste good.
they taste good. You just got to catch a mess of them to make anything, but
Yeah.
it's like the brim of the sea, I
Yeah.
guess.
How many do you think I'd have to eat? Gabe?
Is it like
To fill you up.
breakfast, like you're
dinner.
eating a dinner meal?
Oh, you probably eat 10.
10?
Oh, maybe more.
Yeah.
He eats a lot,
I do.
but
He put down 40 wings.
Well, that's
went
just
to
not
lunch.
good.
he had 40 wings, and he's like, I didn't really eat that much for lunch.
What were they?
Like, what the
Oh,
crap?
what were they fried in?
Dude,
Tallow.
probably seed oil. for
Probably
sure.
red dye
No,
40.
Yeah.
100% seed oil.
RFK would have been losing his mind. He'd
What
been
did-
like, however he does it.
One of the things about Granger, he's our resident health expert.
He is very
Like,
healthy.
If you have a question, he's usually got an answer for you, or he can get an answer pretty quick.
I'll
as
get you
far
an
as-
answer.
As far as health,
Yeah.
he's been on the carnivore diet now for about how long?
I'm not fully carnivore.
Okay.
Like I'll eat like blueberries and blackberries.
Oh, is that not carnivore?
No.
No.
Carnivores just meat,
You
cheese,
eat the things that eat
eggs.
the blueberries.
So like my main staples are eggs and ground beef and steak.
yeah.
Grass
You'd be
fed.
amazed how many different ways you can cook meat, cheese, eggs, and butter.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean-
You get creative.
Yeah.
And occasionally Shelby, she will make like sourdough, and I'll have that for a nice treat.
So
pretty good.
I tried a super recipe the other day. It was supposed to be cake, and it's just egg whites, and then you mix the yolks up with Philadelphia cream cheese, spin that up. You get the whites all fluffy, and you slowly like kind of roll it back together with the Philadelphia cream cheese yolk mix. And you bake it, and then you make your own. I made my own whipped cream, which that's actually really good.
What
Better
did you
than
just call it? Whipped cream?
whipped cream. Yeah,
That's like you just whoop that cream into
cream?
cake.
I whooped that cream. Anywho.
I just beat it.
And then I made my own, and it was actually so much better than the Ready Whip. I used monk fruit,
Well, there's not all the
Anywho.
chemicals in.
and made that up, and it wasn't bad. But if you are wanting cake, like if your brain is thinking what cake is supposed to taste like, which my palate's really desensitized from sweet stuff, so like stuff doesn't have to be insanely sweet anymore. It's nothing like cake. It was more like what's that called? Flan. That's
Oh, okay.
Lawn.
flan,
Yeah.
flan, whatever it's called. I don't know whatever it's called.
Not a big flan fan.
That was more like what it was. I don't know if I cooked it wrong, but that's how it turned out.
So, we got our carries out here today. Shadow Systems. MR920 with the comp. Surefire 300X. Leupold Delta Point. Beautiful gun.
Good
We went out shooting Monday for Memorial Day. It was a good time. We did some 1R1s, some.
I wasn't
other
invited.
No,
That's
you
okay.
were. You
Wow.
had a party to go
Party.
to.
Oh
Go to.
man,
I wish I could have went out.
chose a party over the boys.
Hey, family sometimes.
Family number
Trumps.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the boys.
But,
But
no, go ahead.
I'm sorry. But I was listening to another group of guys, and one was ex-military and one was not, and he was just going through, he was a new father, and just going through the trials of trying to raise a son in this modern world, and the trials that technically he didn't grow up with, the stuff he had to look out for, but now his son he's got to make sure he's got to guard his son from it. And a lot of it was, you hear so much about these pedophiles and everything else out there, but just dealing with social media and how they, you let your son get on a phone or something, just, and you think you have all the blockers and everything up out there. But just the access you have to so much on phones and, and just how important that is, as a dad, just to kind of lay your foot down on certain things of how you're going to raise your son. And I'm, not married or have a son yet, but I'm just, I'm listening to these guys and I'm just, it seems like such a serious responsibility. And I just wanted to, kind of, because you and Gabe are now, young fathers raising families up, and you got to go through, kind of navigate through, what you're going to allow in your house and what you're not going to allow. And some things, may seem innocent until they're not. And, just kind of what you've been dealing with, kind of raising a son. And I like how you were saying, you take him out there and fishing. That's, at that age, that's one of the most impactful things, I believe, as for me when I was a boy, is when we did stuff outside in the swamp, when I was there with my dad. And, it's just special. And it may not seem that way because, you get tired of it really quick and you're ready for the next thing as a kid. But those moments that you are there. You know, they mean so much. But
No, you can definitely tell. I don't know if you can, Gabe, but like if I'm working a lot, like during a week or something, and I come home and like Finley, he's more standoffish.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because he's been spending more like all day, every day with mom.
Yeah.
And so she's giving him everything he needs. And so
Yeah.
it's like I've got to work back in my trust again with him.
Oh, yeah.
But then like say like a good half day with him, it's back.
yeah,
Right.
Like, oh, remember how much fun Dad is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Dad's-
oh yeah,
And so
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know if little Ben's the same way or not.
He can be. Usually he's pretty excited to see Dad. And it's almost like you can definitely tell it's different. Like it's almost a lack of fatherly influence. I don't know. It's weird because he's like, you can tell if you've been away for a while.
Yeah.
They're like really excited to see you, but I don't know how to explain it. It's like they have this initial burst of excitement and then it's like tapers off. So it is very important to spend that time with them, you know, and then reconnect and get that one-on-one time. Especially I was challenged with that the other day, you know, with my daughter. You know, take her on. She's still very young, so it's not to that extent. I think the guy that I was listening to, his daughter was like 10 or 11. Charity's like 7 right now, but take her on dates. You be the first one as a father to set the standard. So when she does finally come of age, not only will you have that connection with her as a daughter that my father wants the best for me, but you set the standard for what any other young man should meet as far as care, loving, putting her and her mother first, and be that example of sort of masculinity for her, protection, be that shield.
Yeah.
But then for your son, it's different. You know, you have the responsibility of pushing him, teaching him to one day be the provider.
Well, like, yeah. So I heard something interesting, and it's true. Like, I think if you're a good father, then you are the only person that wants another man to be better than you
Yeah.
Yeah.
for your son.
Right.
And so it's like you're raising him. I want to be so much better than I am, you
Right.
know? Like,
No, that's it.
yeah.
And that's, wow. Yeah, no, that's good. Because you do. As a father, you want the best. And I can see it from in myself, from my father wanting the best for me and wanting me to succeed over, more than what he did, what his father did for him, to pass that down and to carry it on and to keep it going.
Yeah.
And to carry it through to the next generation and 2 generations following. And it's challenging. It's exciting, but it's scary at times because you're like, who am I? Who am I to raise this young man or this young lady? I feel like for me, I don't know, the burden is so much on raising a godly son, because I know the failures that I have, and I know the challenges that he's going to have. Just the not laziness, but the failures with my eyes. And the world all around us, like you were just talking about, with the pornography and with the social media,
access
just
to media.
everywhere.
It's all in your
you
face
turn,
nonstop.
I was listening to a guy and he's like, our dopamine levels have dropped, or the sensory, when you just flood your brain with dopamine, it becomes, our senses we don't even pick it up anymore because it's everywhere, whether it's scrolling on our phones. We were talking about it a little bit last week, working, we watch these videos of people doing things and we get this dopamine hit, but you get the same thing from pornography, from, so it's just everywhere. We're flooded with it. And how am I going to raise my son in a world where it's everywhere? He's got it even more than because I can remember not having a cell phone, having to go up to people's doors and knock on the door, and not deal. You didn't even know if they were going to be home. You were just, hey, I'm driving around. I don't have a phone. I have no way to contact them. I'm going to just go by and see if they're home.
Yeah.
To the world now where, like, I was talking to my wife and she's like, I couldn't even imagine somebody just stopping by. And it's like,
there's some nut at the front door.
Well,
don't answer.
We used to live in a world where you didn't have the ability to notify somebody that you were coming over. And so it is a huge responsibility, I believe, as fathers to guard our hearts, but also to help our sons have the start that they need. And it's like, you hear from, different sides, they have to experience the world. And it's like, no, one day they will experience the world and they will be out in the world. But it's a father, it's my responsibility. And I feel biblically, you look at it from the biblical point of view, God puts us in that fatherly position to be a shield for our children, for our wives, for our children. Because he puts us in that authority position for a reason, and it's to protect our children and protect them from things that they may not see, they may not be ready for.
No, that's what I was hearing one guy, and he was just saying how, kids' brains, they don't fully develop till you're 20, 25.
Yeah.
And until then, you are the one to be that, to sift what comes in and out of their life. You are the first level of protection before anything else. And when the father's not in the picture, everything comes straight to them. And, it's just so important because you see so many kids growing up now that they just live in broken homes, because dads never really grew up. They just got married as kids, basically, and then realized how much work it was, and I'm out of here. And then the moms are stuck with it, but mom's got to make a living, and so mom's not usually there, and they're just stuck at either hanging out with kids their own age, and they're all figuring it out themselves. And it's such a such a sad and dangerous kind of society we've kind of messed ourselves up with. But how important it is to raise a community of men, and especially young fathers that can come beside each other and encourage each other, and because everybody's dealing with the same issues. We're all gotta, figure out how to navigate this world of, media, basically, because there are good things that come from it. You can, get to know
like this
people.
podcast.
Yeah. I mean, there are good things, and that's the hard thing about it is how you balance it. How do you you have to know yourself, I guess, what you can actually handle and be real with yourself. Because I catch myself, multiple times, and you're just scrolling through things, and you're like, this is such a waste of time.
Yeah.
I'm just watching these dumb videos. Maybe it's funny, maybe, whatever it is, watching somebody else do work or something. And then you realize you've just burnt up at least an hour doing nothing. You could have been doing anything else, and it would have been... And now you regret your time. Now you have that mindset of, oh, now I just have to catch up. Now I'm behind. And then somehow you catch yourself back on your phone doing the same thing. And you're just like, I hate this phone so much.
Like, I just watched this guy make thousands of dollars. And I
Why
made
can't
nothing.
I do that? Yeah. And so, there's pros and cons to it. But that's one thing that's been on my mind lately is just how destructive these phones are now. And how bad, because once I got out of jail, and we had, everything before jail, but I went 4 years without anything.
Yeah.
You didn't have absolutely any kind of phones, so you couldn't get a hold of nobody. You're on the, off the grid, basically. And, coming back, you just thought, it'd be nice to actually be able to see what everybody's doing. Might as well get another phone and be able to contact everybody and get to know everybody that I've met throughout the time, through jail and through the whole experience on Facebook and things like that, you can connect with people, but then all the rest of it comes with it. And now you've got all these reels now that are just, oh my goodness, they're rough. And I'm just thinking, we had a really good, dad that kept us from phones for a long time. Even though there was phones out, it was until I was actually old enough to buy my own and go get a job and everything else before I ever got any kind of, media like that. And so I kind of had a life before that. And so, but these kids are growing up, automatically they know how to use a phone. At 10 years old, they're masters with phones. They can get on anything. And I'm just like, man, it's so scary to think. And just the responsibility is to take care of, young people like that, and to guard and look out for them, because it's, if you're not careful, you could have no clue what's really going on with your son or your daughter, and, or nieces and nephews. We have a lot of nieces and nephews now, and I feel like it's my responsibility as an uncle to look out for them. And, and it's just, there's so much out there, but
I forgot what the average age is, but
yeah,
but it's super young, where young boys are first exposed to pornography.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then from that point on, it's an addiction.
Yeah.
It will ruin your life.
Oh yeah.
100%. And so it's to guard them, to know the triggers, the signs, whatever, because I went through it,
yeah,
and it ruined my life. It really did. And then praise God that I'm on the other side of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
But no, it will absolutely ruin your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of, realizing who you are as a man, and your weaknesses and your strengths, and knowing how to discipline yourself.
Yeah.
Because, I may know all the good that comes from, maybe having social media and all these different things, but if I know I can't handle it, you get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. Even if it's not even pornography, even if it's just you can't put it down, and you can't just go and do something that's really going to help you mentally and spiritually, and
Yeah.
learning how to put the phone down and pick up a Bible or a book, or just walk in the woods and get alone, and learn how to handle your own thoughts is I've learned it's very rare nowadays for people to be able to, I guess, handle their own thoughts. And they get bored. They got to have something instantly. And I catch myself slowly getting into that, and it scares me, and I'm like, I cannot be that person.
I've heard people talk like it scares them to just be alone. You watch the gym guys and the stuff, learning different lifting techniques and stuff, and a lot of those guys, you have so much pain and so much stuff built up in your mind to be alone with the thoughts, and the guilt comes, and then you know, and it's depression, and so I'm gonna just drown it out listening to this heavy metal, or these, videos, or anything that you can do to just drown out the silence.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not where we should be, because if we don't ever get alone with God, if we don't ever get quiet and hear God's voice, then we're never going to really grow and get past that.
Yeah.
Because it takes that
Exactly.
that quietness, that peace, to be able to get past some things.
And it really doesn't matter how far off the deep end you are. There's no such thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can always come back. The Lord will, if you dig yourself into a mile hole, the Lord will reach down and pull you out.
yeah, he's
That's
got
it.
a long enough rope. He can
100%.
It gets you out
Yeah,
of anything.
that's the good thing about the God that we serve is no matter where you're at, he still wants you. He still pursues you, and that's exciting.
Like I got saved in 2015. Like I got out of Coast Guard in 2016. A lot of stuff led up to it. But anyways, the verse that made me just like break down and, like a little baby.
Yeah.
It was, I was reading about the rich young ruler where he went, he saw Jesus on the path and he's like, well, Lord, I kept all these things. And from my life, he's like, that's great, basically. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Right, yeah.
He's like, well, sell everything, because he had many things. He says, sell everything and come follow me.
Yeah.
And he says he walked away because he had many things.
Yeah.
He walked away sad. But it's like, it doesn't matter what you've done or what you haven't done. What matters is that you drop everything and then focus on him.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. And so you could be, off the deep end. And what matters is that you come back to him.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's it. Makes all the difference in the world. Because I've listened to guys that aren't that aren't faith based and speaking on the same things and it's sad because they're dealing with a life that has no happy ending necessarily.
Yeah.
You live, love, and then we die, and that's it. And it's without Christ in all this,
There's no hope.
It's all for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's all vain, and it's there's nothing at the end. And you may challenge yourself, you may push yourself to be the best man you possibly can, but then at the end of the day, who cares? You're dead now.
Yeah.
And your name's forgotten. But when Christ is in the picture, when that real reason to live is in that picture, it makes it all worth it. It makes it worth to that challenging yourself, to getting up early, to pushing yourself to do much better things, to be an example of what a man ought to be. And because it's all written down. The Lord has a record book, and if no one else ever knows about what you do or how much you push yourself, the Lord knows it.
Yeah.
And if you do it for His glory, then that's what it's all about. And it gives you it gives you that drive to carry on. And me and my sister were talking about these different wars that have happened throughout history of odds that are way outnumbering, and yet the underdog somehow wins. And it's men that have something worth fighting for, men that have passion behind what they're fighting for, can do amazing things. And and that's how we are living. When you have a purpose to live, when you have a drive to continue, you can do amazing things. And when you as a young man getting ready to find a wife and start a family, there's so much, pressure I put on myself, not necessarily have to have it, but, to be ready, to be prepared to actually, raise a family and to not just come at it empty-handed.
Yeah.
Because in the Old Testament, there was always a dowry for a wife, a
bride price. Yeah.
And, you see all these young boys and these different youth groups in high school and different things, and they're getting with these girls, and I'm like, you have nothing to offer, and you still have so much to learn.
Oh yeah, no, it's
and it's like, what makes you think that you're ready to be her rock that she can lean on, and that you're ready to start a family and to raise one. And nobody's ever 100% ready. You're always going to have to learn.
Yeah.
But at least prepare yourself. Get yourself right before God and understand who you are and your faults and your failures and what you're good at, and learn yourself before you drag someone else along to get into your mess.
We did It was one of the longest studies we did when I was youth pastor, was about preparing for marriage. Because as a young person, besides salvation, that's the next most important, not even a young person, any person, the next most important question you're going to answer in your life, besides what do you do with Jesus, is who are you going to marry?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, there are, my uncle, he abstained from marriage like Paul did, you know, and the Lord gave him grace. But most of us don't have that grace. God intended us for us to get married and to have children and to pass that line down. And so preparing for that, how do you as a young man or young woman prepare for that? The kids hated it. They literally did not. They were like,
They're like, this is not fun.
Are we done with this yet? And I'm like, I know you're tired. I know you don't want to hear me talk about it anymore, but it is so important. Yeah. You as young men have so much responsibility to prepare, to work. And especially in today's society, you know, you have guys our age that are struggling, you know, to make a living, to pay bills, and then you got young men that are wanting to get married. It's like, whew, I don't know how you're going to do it. You know, I mean, to do it in the sense that you have one man, you know, the father working, the mother staying home, taking care of the kids. I don't know how you do it. It is so hard in today's society without two incomes. And I think they've done that on purpose. If you look, it's intentional. Yeah. They did it to destroy the family structure. And I say it's, you know.
I know who they is.
Yes.
I know who they is.
I know them.
It was intentionally done so that it would destroy the family structure. And so then you'd have to send them off to daycare. You'd send them to the state so the state could take care of them. I was listening to a montage of Hillary Clinton, you know, Kamala
the communist?
Yes. All of these senators and congressmen saying that it's a community, that we need to raise these kids together. And it's like, no.
You stay out of my life, government.
Get the heck away from my kids, because we see what you do with the kids and we don't like it.
It's all by design, because they send the father and then they make it impossible for the mom to stay home. So the mother goes to work. So what do? Send the kids to institutions.
You got to. And
then they brainwash them.
And you wonder why you have almost a 75% dropout of kids once they're out of high school. They stop going to church. Mm-hmm. And that's a failure as parents on our part. You know, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You can hold. Why do we say that all the other promises in Scripture apply, but it's not really the parents' fault if the kids go off and, you know, they're not, you know, and don't get me wrong, it does, you know, they do have their own choices. But if we do our jobs as parents, you know, I look at my family, you know, and my dad, what he did, and every single one of his kids are serving the Lord. You know, they may not be in the ministry, but they're faithful to the Lord. They're faithful in their walk. And it's like, did what Dad did growing up, did it have an impact on his children? And you can't deny it. But I
think it definitely helps the odds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was it easy? No, it wasn't. He bent over backwards. He drew a line in the sand multiple times I can remember as a young man. No, as for me and my house, sleepovers. Me and my wife have had this discussion. We weren't allowed to sleep over anywhere. Now, people could come over to the house and sleep over, but he's like, I know that I can control what's going on in the house. If my kids go off somewhere else, I don't know what's going on. And it's a scary thing. And you hear so many horror stories of what happens at sleepovers, and I think there was a reason behind it. And was it easy? No, because there were a lot of family members that like, why aren't your kids, you know, allowed to come over? And it's
once you get family involved, it gets interesting.
No.
Yeah, it does. But it's not easy, and it's hard as parents to train up children in the way they should go, because kids see everything.
Yeah.
They watch you at your worst and they see you at your best, and you're not going to get you're not going to deceive them with some, flowery words and, holier than thou attitude, because they see it. And so if you don't live it in front of them,
Yeah.
then they're going to call you out on it, and they're going to say, this is fraud. And so, wow.
Yeah. No, that's it.
But going back to real quick, going back to like young men and looking for a wife,
Yeah.
and it's so important. Like this was my experience. My experience was I had just hit rock bottom. I got saved probably 6 months prior to meeting Shelby, and I was on fire for the Lord.
Yeah.
I didn't want anything to do with a woman, like 100%. Like I just wanted to focus on my relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in church, and then I see Shelby walk by.
Oh, this young lady caught your eye.
I'm like, oh my gosh, who's that young lady? And then, but it was like, it was from the Lord, is what it was.
Yeah.
So it was, and now we've been married, I think 8 years this year, and got 2 kids now.
That's awesome.
But you want to meet somebody, focus on the Lord first,
Yes.
and then He will bring that somebody along.
Yeah. You cannot not have peace in your life and expect somebody else to be that peace or to bring happiness. You can't be miserable in your life and then be like, the answer to my problems is somebody else. No, you're just going to drag their happiness right into your misery because you don't know how to truly be happy in and of yourself, or to be content, content with the Lord, to be at peace with Him. And I feel like we put so much pressure on young people that they just instinctively, you have to go out and look, because even if you're not ready, well,
What are you doing without a girl?
where is your
Right.
girlfriend? Well, okay, clearly I need to go out and get a girlfriend. And this is from young kids, young people are put that pressure, and it's like, you're not ready for that responsibility. You don't have the relationship with Christ that you need. You don't have your house in order, so to speak, your financial situation the way it needs to be. And we're never going to be perfect. You're eventually going to have to make sacrifices as a couple, and especially in today's age. But as young men, you have the most amount of drive that you're ever going to have in your life at that age. You can go out and accomplish so much, but we don't push our young men the way that they need to be pushed. You have the most testosterone at that age. You have the most drive you're ever going to have, the most energy.
You don't have any responsibility at the time.
They don't have a goal. We don't set up goals for our young men so that they can go out and achieve and push the limits and push those goals to actually get prepared for their life to come, for their future wife, because we don't, we're looking at the now as opposed to the future. And so I feel like it's a failure as a society and as parents to not push that vision, that goal on our young people, because it's an opportunity for them to take that initiative and to go out and make a difference.
Yeah. That's what I like what you just said, when you started getting yourself right, that's when the Lord brings a wife usually.
Yeah.
And you hear that with a lot of people. And it's not that you have to have everything set up. I have a house, I have my finances, I have all these things lined up perfect, and then I can go get a wife. No, not necessarily. It doesn't always work out that way. But right now, you have no excuse not to try to prepare yourself and to have those things, because those things only help the situation. So I was just thinking about how, the Old Testament, you have a bride price, and you have you bring certain things, to the father for, the daughter. And, that's Old Testament stuff. We don't do nothing like that. But if you have that kind of mindset and you're praying for this wonderful, girl that can cook, can do all these things. She's great with kids. She can, she has all of it. But yet you don't have any of it as being a man. You expect God to bring her to your level and say, and God to say, yep, I have this wonderful girl that's given me all these things to try to live her life for me. And yet I'm going to bring her down to your standards all the way to the ground. So you can have that dream girl, even though you're not ready.
Right.
And and it sometimes works out like that. Sometimes God just blesses us because as men,
You don't deserve that.
We don't deserve it. And but you should get in the mindset. If I am praying for this wonderful girl, I should at least try to raise myself to that same standard.
Yeah.
As when she sees me, I'm at that same standard of a man that she's praying for, because she's praying for this wonderful guy that can be a father, that can be a leader, that she can depend on, that's trustworthy, and all these different attributes of a man that she's praying for and asking God for the same things. And so if we want those, a great wife like that, we should at least at this time prepare ourselves to be that man, rise to the occasion, rise to that level. And what it takes is discipline. You really do have to discipline yourself, put away things, and get in that mindset of, if I'm praying for something in the future that's this great, at least I should put forth the effort to try to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And, because we read in the scriptures of men that were called to great things, to do amazing feats in history that God put in the scriptures to last forever. And these men were prepared. These men were ready. And a lot of them, trained, and they were ready for whatever God called them to be. They were already those men, or they might not have been the men, that God lifted them up to be, but they were at least had the attributes to get there, at least had the drive to get there. And then God usually took them to a higher level. But, it's just, at this time we have, when you're single, when you don't have kids, when you don't have, a wife, it's a good time to train and to prepare yourself to better yourself in different skills and different things. And, it's just get your mindset set on, I want to be more of a man worth, that at least, can meet whoever you're praying for, her needs.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say one time, the whole thing, like women want to be a Proverbs 31 woman.
Yeah.
What kind of man does it take to allow your wife to be that woman?
Yeah.
And so anything marriage and having children will teach you, if you let it, will help you to be less selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, it's no longer about you.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Yeah. No, that's
and as soon as you let that go and realize that, it's like, and my gosh, I struggle with it some weeks more than others.
Yeah.
But once you take a step back and you realize what's going on, it's like, my gosh, I'm being selfish.
Yeah.
And then you realize, and then from there you can start healing and repairing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's hard to go from the mindset of being, that high value man that you want to be, to, as a husband and father, you are called to a servant role. You're called to serve, and it's hard to. You can teach that mindset, but it's something that the Lord really has to take you and mold you to be that.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be selfish. We all want to put ourselves first. Look at me. I'm the first one to raise my hand and say I am so selfish, and it catches you off guard. You'll be like, I deserve this. This is something that I deserve, and then I'm like, what if the Lord had said that? You know, what if the Lord said that about us? Well, I deserve to be worshiped this way, or I deserve, you know, your love to this extent. And it's like, Lord, I fall short. And it's like, well, you're demanding that of your wife or your kids, or, you know, and it's like, wow. Oh, oh me, you know, what, not woe is me, but the fingers are pointing at me. I am at fault, and it's hard to get out of that rut.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it creeps up on you.
Yes.
For sure. It'll start out with something small,
Yeah.
and then by the end of the week, it's like nobody's talking. It's like, man.
Oh no, what just happened?
It's like, my gosh, how did we get here?
Yeah.
That's your side of the bed, honey. This is my side of the bed, and those.
Don't you cross that line.
Yeah. And
No,
it's sad because the kids see it. You know, the whole house is just on pins and needles, and it's
Well,
and
yeah,
it shouldn't be.
It affects the children and
Yes.
their attitudes because they start bickering
Yep.
even more, and it's like, my gosh, it's like not
Lord,
good.
What have you done? And it's like the Lord's like, that's you, buddy.
You ain't clean up your mess.
You really want to get in trouble. Lord, help this woman see what she did wrong.
Lord, what
telling
have you
you.
given me? This woman that you have blessed me with. Oh my.
No,
Yeah.
it's always me.
Man.
But but there is much grace, and there is
Yeah.
and we just have to search for it.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Not to change the subject, but to, if you had any other thoughts, we'll keep going.
Oh,
but
yeah, get into it, man.
I when we went out fishing on the 24th was our 22nd anniversary of
Man.
sinking in the Gulf of, it was the Gulf of Mexico back then, but the Gulf of America today.
That's
We
awesome.
were
Were you trying to reenact it?
no,
Okay.
but
That's good.
When,
He's like, I'm going back out.
when we
We're gonna do
show
it.
up, the boat that we were supposed to take out, they're like, "Hey guys, it's all right. They're working it out. We had some engine troubles. They're getting it solved."
This was Saturday?
Yeah, this was Saturday. Everybody was like,
Don't
they
even
look
worry
over
about
at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, my bad, guys. I promise I'm not a Jonah. I just."
Be like, don't worry, this ain't my first rodeo. Just
Hey,
It's easy
if it does happen, don't worry. I'm a professional at it. But
bring a cooler.
yeah, they did ask me. They were like, "So if we sink, what is the most important thing to grab?" And that was it. The cooler. If you're gonna grab anything off of a sinking boat, water, and it's usually in the cooler, and that gives you something to hold on to, and you don't realize how important that fresh water is, and really just something to be able to lean on and rest. And because even though we had life vests,
Yeah.
just being able to keep your arm on something that was fairly buoyant was so nice.
Oh, yeah.
You should start from the beginning.
Yes.
Tell us the
Okay.
whole
So,
thing, dude.
22 years ago, it was a
wow.
beautiful sunny day. No,
Galaxy far, far away.
we were out fishing. We were about 40 miles out that day, and it was a beautiful day. We had caught a ton of fish. We were coming back in. It was around 7:00 at night. We get about 25 miles out, and the fuel ran out. So we had some extra fuel tanks because we knew we were going to be going a long ways out, and we didn't have enough fuel in the main tank. So we stop and we put some fuel in, and the boat is getting like really far in the water. Like, when the water's splashing over the back of the motor, it's like, this is not how it's supposed to be. And so we pour a little bit of fuel in there and we try and get it up on plane so maybe water can drain off. There's no signs that it's taken on water, but clearly it was. And we get it back up on plane, or we tried to get it back up on plane, but it never made it. We got a little bit further, and the motor started to die. I guess we were drowning it, and it stopped. And when we did we abandoned ship, and the boat flipped over, and it stayed above water. We were able to then grab all the debris that we had. There was some rope. Everybody got a life vest, and then we grabbed a couple of coolers and some flares and some different things. We did not have an EPIRB on the boat, so that's a device that lets the Coast Guard know. It just pings the coordinates. Hey, there's probably a boat gone down, or there's been some trouble. The EPIRB has gone off, and so it lets the Coast Guard know sort of where you're at. We didn't have one of those because it was a lot of money, and so we were boaters on the cheap. We didn't have a life raft. We didn't have expensive life vest. We had the cheapest of everything, and that's just because, you know, we weren't very well off, but we did like to go fishing, and so it was so sad because we had just spent a month fixing this boat up and fixing the motor, and so everything was working pristine, we thought, except there must have been a crack in the hull or something, because after about 30 minutes, the boat goes up like the Titanic and straight to the bottom. Never saw it again. So there's the 5 of us. It was my father, he was the captain, my uncle, and then my 2 cousins and myself. And my cousins were 12 and 13, and I was 14 years old. So we were going out. It's May, so in Florida it's pretty warm, but the water temperature is still fairly cold. We didn't know, but the week previous they had lost people to shipwreck. Their boat had gone down and people had died, and then the week following they had lost people. And so it was not looking good for us. You know,
Did you know that?
No, we didn't know that.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it probably was. But
at least a week before.
Yeah.
We knew that the possibility was there because you were already, once that sun set, you were already starting to feel the cool air, and the water temperature was, you didn't have that big old ball of fire heating it up, so you were getting cold really quick. And so we go around the group, and it's just us out there with our heads bobbing up and down. We did tie everybody together so we would all be connected. And you know, we had a little bit of water there in the cooler, so we'd take some water breaks and everybody would drink. But it was about 10 o'clock. We go around, and each hour we're praying, and we're just, Lord, you know, I've been on some all-night prayer meetings before, but this one was one of those where you didn't have an option. You were the Lord's like, hey,
the ultimate lock-in.
We're gonna sit you down in the middle of the ocean, and we're gonna make sure that you're praying, and you're literally crying out, seeking my face. And I can remember when we first sank, I read a lot of G.A. Henty books growing up. And it would always have the protagonist. He was a young man about my age, and he would look for adventure. And everywhere he went, you know, stuff would happen in his life. And I'm like, hey, this is happening. I am right there in the book. This is real life. And it lasted. I was thinking that, you know, for a while, and then it started to get cold, and you're shaking and you're shivering. And your teeth are chattering, and there's nowhere to warm up. Like, you are just cold and miserable. And after paddling around, your legs start to lock up, and you start to get muscle cramps, and it started to get miserable. And it's like, man, I don't really like this story anymore. This story sucks.
Yeah.
And it was about that time Dad realized that, hey, we may be out here all night. We had left float coordinates with Mom where we were going to be, what time we were going to be home, and we were supposed to be home around 8-9 o'clock. And so it's like, okay, anytime now the Coast Guard could show up because they know our coordinates, they know how we were coming in, so they should be here anytime now. And after we see a boat on the horizon, we try and shoot the flares off. And so the first flare, you know, goes up about an inch and then just peters off in the water, and you're like, oh snap, this might be bad. And so the next one bounces off my dad's thumb into the water, and the third one goes up about the same. And it's like, well, I think they were just old and wet. We had them for years, and so they were just duds at that point. But it's like the Lord was like, nope,
You're not ready yet.
I'm keeping
Not
you
in my
here.
house.
I'm keeping you here all night.
Get outta here.
Because it's like, okay, you pick the flare gun up with the flares. You out of all the things that you could have grabbed, and you grabbed that. It's like, okay, well, hey, at least we'll be able to use this. And the Lord's like, nah, not tonight. I'm gonna keep you here for a reason. And so Dad went around to each one of us, and he's like, if you died today, do you know that you would spend eternity in heaven? And he asked each one of us, because the likelihood that we make it out of, all of us make it out of here alive, is very slim. And he's like, if you are to go, you're going to go on my back, on my shoulders. I'm going to make sure I keep you above water as long as humanly possible. But do you know where you're going to spend eternity? And we were able to go around the group and say without a shadow of a doubt that we knew that if we died that night, that we would spend eternity in heaven. And that's something that stuck out to me more probably than I don't know that any other experience in my life, but it was one of those life-changing experiences, because no matter where you go, what you do, what you face, you can always look back on that and be like,
Yeah.
I know my faith is real, because I literally was facing death we knew that we might die, because by that time you're cold. You're so cold. You just want anything to make it stop, and so you really had to take hey, I might not make it out of this tonight. This might be my last night on earth. What am I doing to prepare for eternity? And it was something that I could look back on and be like, hey, I don't have to doubt my salvation. I can rest 100% on the truth that I am saved, that the Lord, he did give me that peace that passes all understanding. When the chaos is all around, and when you're wading through life's, disaster, that I can rest in that. And so after that, it just gets worse. It gets colder. You start to feel these fish brush up against your leg, and the jellyfish start to sting. I don't know what stung my dad, but he had this huge, I don't know if it was a man of war, what it was, but it was just this huge raw spot on his leg after we got out, where something had stung him. And you're expecting the whole time. There's so many sharks in the Gulf of Mexico, or in the Gulf of America, that you're expecting any minute, somebody's leg's going to just get bit off. We kept our belts to use as tourniquets, because we're like, hey, we may need this later. And so we went all night. The Lord kept us out there. We kept praying all night. About 2:00, I started to hallucinate. Like, I was getting so cold, but I was also dry heaving. I think I had swallowed some salt water earlier in the day. We had gone swimming and stuff, and I started to dry heave, and my dad's having to hold me up. And I can only imagine, as a father, being right there. Your son is in the middle of the Gulf. You couldn't see anything. Like, it was just pitch black. The stars were up. The moon set at like 11 o'clock that night. And so it's just black. You're just out there. You do see the phosphorus in the water. So anytime you would splash or anything, the water would glow. And Dad's like, hey, we got to keep our splashing down to a minimum, because the sharks are swimming along the bottom looking up for bait fish. And he's like, we don't want to look like bait fish up here, because then the sharks will come up and get us.
Thanks, Dad.
Okay.
And so you tried to keep
tip.
your splashing to a minimum, but it was a night from hell. Like, you didn't realize you could get that cold. My cousin, he was literally catatonic. Like, he was out. Like, I thought he was dead a couple of times. And his dad, literally, the testimony that he had previous weeks, he's shared this before, so he doesn't mind me sharing. Him and his wife were having marital problems, and he's like, Lord, him and Dad had got together and they got to pray, Lord, teach me to love. And he's literally holding his son while he's watching his son die, and he's like, the amount of love that you have, but you're watching your son literally freeze to death in front of you. And he's holding him and he's trying to keep him as warm as he can, but the water's just sucking that heat out of him. And he's praying, Lord, teach me to love, teach me to show that love. And he's like, that night may have just been for him to learn to truly love. And if it was, it would have been worth it, but there was so much more gain from it. But we went that night, and it was the next morning, and you're spending this whole night in the black, and you can see the sun start to come up. There's no sun yet, but you can see the light coming up. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning, and you start to see that brightening of the sky, and you're like, oh, Lord, just get us to sunrise. And once that sun hits, it will warm up instantly. And that's what you were saying in your brain. We should have known. But once that sun came up, it was just such a letdown because you were still freezing. You were still just dying inside. But we were able to actually start swimming then because the phosphorus had stopped glowing, and so you could actually swim and try and warm up. And that's where having the water came in, because if you didn't have water, you would try and keep your movements to a minimum just to preserve any type of moisture in your body. But you could see the direction that land was, and you could know, hey, we're going to start swimming this way, because if the Coast Guard doesn't know where we're at, maybe, eventually we can get to land. And we were in the Gulf Stream, so we were just shooting up the coast, but at least it was some comfort. Hey, get your mind off of the being freezing to death. But around 9 o'clock, there were some fishermen coming out. We were looking at one boat over in this direction, and there was another boat behind us, and we were waving anything we could, shirts. We had a little tiny cooler that we were throwing up in the air, just trying to get any attention that we could. And this boat that we didn't even see, that boat took off and drove away from us. The boat behind us came up, and so we didn't even see it. Mm-hmm. And it was just, the Lord brought them to us because we're 25 miles out. And when you're that deep, there's not very many fishermen that are out there patrolling around. And the Lord had clogged that motor up, and the boat had turned facing us when they had gone back there to look at what was going on. They thought they had hit something with the prop, or their, seaweed or something had got caught up in there. And when he came back to the helm, that it was facing us, and he thought he had seen something, so he goes that way, and it was out of his way, but he drives that way. He's like, maybe it's some seagulls or something, there's a school of fish or something. And so he drives that way, and he's like, there's people in the water. And so when he picks us up, he calls the Coast Guard. He's like, they didn't want to pick us up because they were like, I don't know if y'all are pirates or some.
Where are y'all from?
What? And we're like, no, we've been out here all night. Honestly, we are not trying to take your boat over or anything. And there was a lady on the boat, Miss Fullerton. We still get to see them. We didn't see them this year, but
no, they came in.
Oh, they did?
Like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay. We still try and contact them every year on the anniversary. But she was like, oh my God, there's little children. And we were, 12, 13, 14 years old. We were just little kids out there in the middle of the ocean. I could only imagine. But he calls the Coast Guard. He's like, you need to come pick these people up. And they were like, nope, you already picked them up. We don't want anything. Nobody wanted anything to do with us.
We don't want those people.
And so,
because you're not in danger.
No, we weren't in danger at that point,
Right.
you know, because we had already been picked up. Now, if they had just left us, hey, there's some people wandering around in the
They're
water.
not going to deploy assets
Yes.
if somebody's already picked up.
And so they bring us all the way back in. Me and my cousins, we were just dead asleep. We were just exhausted. So that whole boat ride, you're just conked out. But Dad and Frank, my uncle, they got to preach to him the whole way in. You know, so the Lord may have just brought him there just to hear the gospel, but it was a life-changing event, and that was
Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. The one memory that I have is y'all driving in, and I look out the window, and there's no more boat. It's just the trailer. And I'm like, oh, well, we don't have a boat anymore. I wonder where that's at. And seeing y'all walking in. The only memory I have of that.
Now,
I was so young at that time. I don't even know.
The most dangerous part of the whole thing was the ride in, because it was just a single cab truck. It was the old days, so we didn't have a dual cab truck. It was just all 5 of us squeezed in, because Frank didn't have his keys, so he couldn't get in his car. So we were all squeezed in this little cab.
Y'all drove yourselves home?
Yes. And
I would have
That's
called
what-
somebody.
No, that's what Dad said. That was the
We-
biggest miracle because he's like, him and Frank were asleep the entire time, and they just woke up at home, and they're just,
I was like,
how did we get here?
boys, let's just get a hotel for a few hours.
we didn't have any money. We didn't have all of our wallets
this
went
stuff
down
was
with the
gone.
boat. And so nobody had any money. We stopped to get coffee because Dad had looked over at Frank, and Frank was asleep, and he had just woke up.
And your dad just had a dream about being asleep.
and he was driving, and so he's like, man, we gotta stop and get some coffee or something to wake up. But nobody had any money. But the lady we told her the story. I don't know if she believed it or not, but she
like,
just gave us
I've heard some
couple of-
stories, but this one, I'm
couple
gonna
of
give
cups
it
of
to you.
coffee, and somehow the Lord, we made it back. But it was that was a miracle through and through, because the Lord, Michael, my cousin, Frank's son, he should have died. Like, he was literally hypothermic. He was catatonic. Like, he had shut down. His body was shutting down. Jordan, the youngest cousin, he was actually probably the best off out of all of us. Like, I was dry heaving and I was hallucinating. I thought we were in Tampa Bay at one point. Like, I could see the Skyway Bridge, and I'm like, why aren't we swimming over there? There's land right there. Come on, guys. But that's why we're all, roped together, so nobody did just swim off. But Jordan probably held up the best out of all of us kids. Dad and Frank had a little more insulation. They were built sort of like I am now. They had enough fat to weather the cold water. But for me and the other boys, it was a miracle that we didn't freeze to death, and then that nobody got attacked by sharks or anything.
That's a miracle. 100%.
So the Lord had his hand on us, definitely. That was one of the scariest things when those, we don't know what it could have been. Sharks, it could have been suckerfish, it could have been anything just brushed up against your leg. You feel this slimy thing slide up against your leg, and you're like,
Get out of here, Satan.
yeah,
Sir.
get thee behind me, Satan.
The old classic Nickelback monkey snake.
I
Man.
hate sharks.
Yeah, sharks are no joke.
But
they just friendly
heard.
little puppies of the sea.
Sharks only bite if you touch their private parts.
This
Oh,
is true.
dang.
I've heard that.
Tell that to the surfers out there that literally just get.
And I'm like, you're right. I did touch him.
I did watch this video the other day. It was like a great white shark, and the dude's out spearfishing, and he comes up and he was heading towards his buddy over there, and he comes up and pokes it with the spear gun. I'm like, you are.
No.
I'd tap out right there. I guess you do it for your buddy, but golly day, you talk about having some cojones.
Sharks is getting out of hand.
Yeah. Oh, they say that we got great whites coming into the Gulf now.
Man.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that warm water, you ain't got no you ain't got no business in there. We don't have the
Well, they heard the new name and it was enticing. them to
Gulf
the
of
freedom.
America.
Well, the global
The
warming is
freedom
really
is
Got those
bringing 'em in.
illegal
making
sharks.
its toll.
This is true.
Well, now we're gonna have to cut it off because we didn't know you were a global warming aficionado.
Listen,
Yeah, it
Since-
happens.
the garden, the earth has been in decay, so who knows?
Now that is true. That is true. The Lord made something
It's gonna
perfect,
burn and freeze at the same time.
and you know what happened? Woman came along and destroyed it all.
Wow.
Might need to cut that one out.
So we're at the end of the podcast.
Go on, edit that one out.
I may have to
Let's put a little edit.
trim that before my wife sees it. Honey, I love you, and don't let anybody tell you different.
I don't care what they say about it.
I don't-
That's what old boy used to tell me. He's like, you know what? I don't care what they all say about you. You're all right. I'm
Yep.
like, oh no, what?
I appreciate that.
Man, what are they saying about me?
Yeah, that's
Don't worry
terrible.
about that.
Yeah. Well, that's it, man. That was awesome having you on. You know,
Oh, good.
good stuff.
Yeah, I had to do a lot less talking with you here.
Hey, you gonna share the verse of the day?
Oh, verse of the
yeah,
day.
sure.
There we go.
There's a couple times I wanted to get it in there, but
Man, you just gotta jump in. You know
it's
we.
okay. You guys had it. Oh man. So we have till we all. Well, let me just say where we're at. Well, actually, I don't have. Where are we at in this, Gabe?
Should be up there at the top. Check the.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I
Ephesians 4,
sent it to the group chat.
13. I just had a screenshot. So.
Yeah, my bad.
Till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we may henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in waiting to deceive, but speaking the truth in love, and may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. And it goes along with what y'all were talking about earlier, raising your kids,
Yeah.
trying to help them. And God has that same goal in mind, through the scriptures, through his influence of the Holy Spirit, through that alone time with him, that you'll learn how to not be tossed to and fro, that you'll know when men come to deceive you, that
Yeah.
you'll know how to walk that straight and narrow path to live for him in your life. And I had another verse to kind of go along with what you guys had going on, and it was earlier when Johnny was talking.
Yeah.
But it says, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." And a lot of the newer versions, they'll translate that as like you having a good life. But it's not about the life. It's the expected end. God's promised us an end.
Right.
Even when things are horrible on this earth, he's promised us peace.
Yeah.
He doesn't think evil of us.
Yeah.
If everything on earth goes bad and you die, you have peace in him. You have an expected end. You
Yeah.
have a life beyond what you have here. And that expected end is what we look forward to. If you base everything off your surroundings, like the newer versions say, like you'll have a good life or whatever, then you're going to look at God and go, well, where's this good life at?
Yeah.
You know,
I got the raw end of the deal.
when you're sitting
Yeah.
out there in the ocean, you guys could have got upset.
Oh yeah.
You could have been like Job's wife, curse God and die.
Oh.
You could have done all those things, right?
Yeah.
But you knew that God had an expected end for you.
Right.
It wasn't about your circumstances. It wasn't about what was going on. What'd your dad ask you? Do you know you're going to heaven? Do you know that expected end?
Do you have that
That's
vision
it.
of an expected end? And we when you have that view, the sufferings that God literally says are going to come upon us to teach us and to grow our faith and to teach us to trust him. What are you going to do? You're just going to, abandon the faith because, clearly God doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't have that expected end, or that, not the expected end. He doesn't have the current favor that he's showing on me. So
Yeah.
my faith is dead, I guess. And no, that's not what he was saying at all, because we do have to have those struggles and those trials in our life. I was taught growing up, if we weren't tested, if we didn't see those struggles in our life, if our life, if everything was just going good, then clearly we weren't doing anything to cause Satan.
If you're never convicted about anything,
Yeah.
and there's probably something wrong.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
if you never have any struggles, then Satan doesn't have anything that he disagrees with you on. So clearly you're not doing anything for the Lord.
Yeah. No, that's it. And it's the same, and I've heard, a lot of young couples and different people that have gone through trials in your marriages, when you go through hardships together and you learn how to get through them, that strengthens that love. It builds a deeper love knowing that you can go through things together.
Oh, yeah.
And builds that relationship. And I believe it's the same way with Christ because, Christ has given us marriage and he could have made it any other way, but he gave us this, elaborate, way of, having a helpmate and all these different things and the emotions that go along with it. And, there's so much to marriage, but yet it's based off of how Christ loves us. When Joey was talking about it before, just how, you read Song of Solomon and how it's hard to understand really what's going on in that book, but it's really to show God's love to us.
Yeah.
And it's just the depth of his love that he gives to us and how, we go through trials and tribulations to help build that relationship with him, to know and for us to realize that we can trust him, that he will get us through it, that this life is not easy and it never will be. You're going to have hardships. You're going to have trials. And, you learn to lean on him through those things and to strengthen that relationship in Christ. It makes all the difference in the world. But, yeah.
No, that's good. I sent that verse to the guys because I felt like there was so many false teachings that I've just seen and heard over the last few weeks, and I'm like, wow, where is some of this coming from? Mm-hmm. And it's like
AI.
It could be, but it's like it's everywhere, and people, some of the simplest things that you're like, well, no, Scripture clearly says, and it's like, but if you don't know Scripture, if you don't have that foundation in God's Word, then when you hear a video on something or you hear somebody explain it in a certain way, it sounds like gospel. It sounds like, wow, this is true. And so you have to have, it's so important to have that foundation in God's Word. Yep. To be able to discern right from wrong and to be able to discern good and evil. And I think that's, what we were talking about as young men preparing. If you want to prepare for marriage, getting in your Word and having that foundation so that when trials and different things come upon your family, that you have the spiritual discernment enough to be able to lead your family. Mm-hmm. And it's trusting the Lord. You have to be able to trust the Lord, but you also have to have a foundation in God's Word. And so as a young man, taking the opportunity to be able to get into God's Word and to really learn and study and have that, when it says you're no longer children, but you grow up and you mature in Christ. That's what it's talking about. To have that more mature walk with the Lord so that you're not just blown around by every wind of doctrine. Because when you do get married, when you do become a father, that responsibility then rests on your shoulders. And hopefully they're big enough to be able to carry the burden because...
Yeah. Hopefully you've been at the gym, getting swole with the boys.
What's the workout of the week?
Man,
yeah, Granger. What are we challenged? You challenging us this week?
How many 100 of what every day?
I don't know. I don't really.
Oh, Granger doesn't work out, man.
I work out.
No,
I just.
Okay.
I don't.
100 lunges?
100 dips.
I don't know.
Gosh.
Bear crawl for half a mile.
No.
Oh my!
We did that in jail.
How about that?
He's like, if we're just throwing stuff out there.
That's what we'll do.
Can you shoot me now?
I'll shoot you after you get done.
Yeah. But that was awesome, man. What's your YouTube again?
It's Hieronymus Outdoors.
Y'all go check him out.
That's his last name. It's
puts-
not
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
made-up word.
it's Hieronymus.
It wasn't AI generated.
Yeah.
That's really his
But,
last.
That's really my
y'all
last
need
name.
to go check out his videos. Very professionally done.
We'll tag it here in the
He
video.
puts a lot of merchandise out there for sale.
Yeah.
And,
Good stuff.
Very quality.
He is
stuff.
a master at his craft.
Wow.
Right on.
Right on. All righty. Thank y'all so much.
Well, thanks for having me. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
No, thank you,
Hopefully
brother.
We can do it again.
That's
awesome.
right.
Yeah.
Catch y'all next
Thank
time.
you for letting me be here.
Right on.